The topic, of course, Jorge Martin and Aprilia. The fact is, Michael, we don't really know the full story of what's happened.
Seriously, what is going on with Jorge Martin? And how do we get here? Well, first, to understand everything, we have to go back on his career. 29th of January 1998. A boy was born in Spain, Madrid. And guess you know what he wanted to do? Yep, we all got that. So obviously, he went to train bikes as a kid. And come 2012, he came into the infamous Red Bull Rookies Cup, which is infamously known for making the next stars of MotoGP. So in 2014, when he won the cup, there's only one logical next step up, Moto3. And he joined that with Aspar Mahindra, which at the time was not good. And his teammate, surprisingly, was Pecco Bagnaia. And in that 2015 season, he got best finish with 7th at Aragon, which actually is very good. Moving on to 2016 though, he sticks with Aspar and Mahindra for the following year. And despite the struggles of Mahindra, he still continues to shine. And receiving his best finish of P2 at Czech Republic, which is, again, I can't underestimate how insane that is on a Mahindra at the time. But because of his more impressive results during that season, for the 2017 season, he signed with Gresini Racing in Moto3, which actually prompted to be very good because they were on the Honda and being a very good team at the time. And immediately on his debut with Gresini, he got a podium in his first race at Qatar with a result of P3, which actually is very good. His first time on a Honda at race weekend is very impressive. And he got another podium at Argentina, and then a P2 at America, and then another podium at Catalonia, and then at Austria, Silverstone, Australia, Malaysia, and finally his first victory in the Grand Prix paddock at Valencia in the final round, which means he finished P4 in the championship compared to his other two seasons of P17 and P16. It only seemed that 2018 was going to be his season. For the 2018 season, he sticks with Gresini once again, because why move? You don't want to change what's already good, right? After the first round, he immediately kicks it off with a race win. They get a few more race wins in America, Mugello, Netherlands, Germany, catching race win after race win after race win. And during that time as well, in qualifying, he had set a new world record with, in his most single season, of 11 pole positions, which again, I cannot understand how insane that is. And then with only 4 rounds to go, it seemed the championship was going to be between Jorge Martin, Marco Bezzecchi, and Fabio Di Gianantonio. Which we call him Digi because I can't say it. This was looking to be very close at the time because this was a very close championship. But as one race fell after another, Martin was still showing to be the best out of the three, as a very solid P5 in Australia and then another win in Malaysia sealed him his first world championship with a race to spare. After 4 years in the Moto3 paddock, by today's standards, would seem very long. And some of these actually records still stand today. Like most consecutive poles in a year, most poles ever in Moto3. It's not bad, is it? However, the next logical step up would be Moto2 again. So he steps up with Moto2 to Red Bull KTM IO, which effectively is the best team on the grid. They are known to making the next stars of MotoGP and always be consistently at the front. But this year was a little different. KTM came into Moto2 that same year with their own Moto2 frame, which again, it wasn't good. It was so far off Kalex, it was not very good. I mean, you could have done with a Suter and probably done better. However, so another rough year to start in Moto2 compared to Moto3. He's on a KTM, but during that season, on his debut, he got P15 at Qatar, which for a rookie in Moto2 on a frame that isn't very good, is very good. And during that season, he kind of struggled with getting in the points at times, but he was always on the verge of getting the points or not, so he was very consistent. But then, halfway into the season, he had a breakthrough of finally getting to P9, which means there was show some good progress, and then a P7 at Austria, then a P6 at Thailand, and then, at Japan, a podium came his way. But not once, but twice. In Australia, he claimed a P2 on a frame that isn't very well known, hasn't got a lot of knowledge. He managed to pull through and get 2 podiums on that year on a bike that probably shouldn't have been there at all. But in the end, he finished P11 in the Moto2 Championship with 94 points. 2020 came around and obviously we know what happened that year. And obviously he stayed with Red Bull IO again once again, but this time they switched from KTM to Kalex chassis this year. But obviously during this time it was COVID and the pandemic, so we had a long wait. But eventually when the first round came around at Qatar, he got a P20 in his first race. He immediately came back the next race with a podium, consistently fighting, hoping he can fight this for this world championship, because actually it was looking very strong. And then come Austria, it was a special weekend because it was another breakthrough weekend for him as he claimed victory once again. And then back-to-back weekends at Styria, he got another podium in second place, which was looking very promising. He was pulling in contention for the fight of the World Championship. He was fighting the likes of Marco Bezzecchi, Sam Lowes, Luca Marini and Enea Bastianini, which I think some of those names you might recognise from MotoGP even to this day. You know he was fighting with the best talent at the time. Again, Sam Lowes is there, don't point him down. And then came the Mazzano round, and sadly he had tested positive for COVID-19, so that means he had to sit out for 2 2 weeks. That means 2 vital weekends for him that he had to miss. That means possibly 50 points losing to the championship because of COVID. And while he was off watching on the sidelines, his rivals capitalised at this time, then came around to the final round of Portugal. It wasn't the best weekend. He had a P6 in the race, but in the end it means that Enea Bastianini was the winner of the championship just by 9 points ahead of Marini, and Sam Lowes equaled on points, and then another 8 points by Bezzecchi. It was actually a very close championship at the time, but Martin didn't have enough. With those vital rounds missing in the middle of the season and the retirements cost him possibly the championship winning Moto2, finishing him in P5 in the championship, but only in his second season. But that didn't stop him from getting attention from the other teams in MotoGP, as Pramac was looking around to sign a new star. And come of 2021, Jorge Martinez signed with Pramac Racing Ducati, which is a very good sign. That means he was finally getting his dream of becoming a MotoGP star when he was once a kid, and now he was getting the opportunity on a very competitive package at Ducati. As Pramac signed him for the 2021 season to help him grow, and on the first round at Qatar, obviously being a rookie, there's a lot to learn, and he finished P15 at Qatar, but then came round the very next week. He got pole position. Having only been on the bike for 6 days, he had clinched his first MotoGP pole position. To do this so quickly in your MotoGP career, and on top of that, during that race he finished on the podium 2 rounds in, and he already had his first pole position and his first podium in MotoGP. But then came Portugal. During FP1 he was out on his bike coming to the second sector, and then he had a massive crash. This crash was so bad that it left him in a horrible state, leaving him with 8 broken bones. This is the type of crash that can be career ending for a rider, and Jorge Martins experienced the highs of the highest and the lowest of the lows within 2 rounds, and now he would be unfit for the Portugal Grand Prix and set to miss the next 3 Grand Prix as well. A massive crash like this put him into a very bad mental state, thinking, is it even worth it going into MotoGP?
I don't remember anything about the crash. After in Barcelona I was thinking to quit, because I say maybe it don't worth to have this pain and to suffer this much to be on a bike.
But then he trained, he recovered, and he came back at Catalonia a few rounds later. And obviously, despite the pain, he finished P14, which is respectable despite the massive crash he just had a few months ago. But then Germany, the next round was P12. He retired at Netherlands, and then Styria came round. He set the world alight in qualifying on Saturday. He got pole position again, and this one was even sweeter, having a career-ending crash just a few months ago. To get pole position, to show that you're willing to never give up, is a statement. But then there was another statement within the race on Sunday, but not only just getting a podium, but going one better by getting his first MotoGP win. And this one was so special, especially for him, the team, and everyone watching. Just a few months ago he experienced that career-ending horrific crash that could have put him out of racing for good, but the recovery, his mentality got him through, and now he had claimed his first race win in MotoGP a few months later. And then the next week for the Grand Prix at Austria, he backed up with another pole position, back-to-back pole positions, and finished another podium in P3. With the rest of the year, he was consistently in the top 10, racking up points. He had a few crashes and DNFs. And then in the final round, he had pole position once again and got a podium in the final round at Valencia, and this put him P9 in the standings, which is very respectable for what he'd been through. It's been an absolute roller coaster of a season. From having 4 pole positions in your rookie season is absolutely insane, but to have 4 podiums and one of them's your race win with a career-ending crash, that was a sign of something to come. 2022 was a different type of year. He stuck with Pramac for another year, obviously. It was a different first half of the season, and in the first 7 races he had 5 DNFs, but he did pick up a podium at round 3 at Argentina. Throughout the season he would consistently fight for the top 10, occasionally a few podiums. The year was definitely more of a learning curve compared to his rookie season. The 2023 season, obviously he wanted to improve, and obviously he wanted to make that extra step compared to last year, as he continued wanted to push the limits of himself to always improve his results. And again, with the first half of the season he would consistently be actually fine for the podium, with 5th, the 4th, with a few seconds and a race win at Germany, and he would always consistently be near at the front, showing that he is one to watch. With the second half of his season he picks up 3 race wins and a podium P3 to show that the growth he's getting with the bike and how much he's gelling was just incredible to actually see. From what no one expected from the start of the year, he would be fighting the title with Pecco Bagnaia, and would go down all the way to the wire at Valencia, where eventually it was down to whoever finished in front of each other would win the title. And it was that close, but down to the race, a few laps in, Jorge Martin had a crash. and that ruined his chances of a MotoGP title slipping away from his hands. And that year, Pecco Bagnaia would win the MotoGP Championship once again for the second time. But ultimately, after a more impressive and improving season in 2023, he would finish P2 in the standings, ultimately showing that he would be one for the favourites of the 2024 season. The 2024 season showed that he stepped up again, even better. A podium at Qatar, a race win at Portugal, another race win at France, another podium at Catalonia, Italy, Netherlands, Silverstone, Austria, consistently putting the work against Pecco Bagnaia, his rival that season, to fight for the title once again. As it was back and forth, with the new introduction of sprint weekends, there was more points to be added in a race weekend, and that's where he shined the most. He would get 14 podiums, including sprints, in the first half of the season. And around in the middle of the season, there was massive talks. While Pecco Bagnaia had re-signed with Ducati for an extra few more years at factory Ducati, there was rumour that Enea Bastianini was on his way out of that factory seat. There was talks of Marc Marquez, Jorge Martin, or they might keep Enea Bastianini on for the next few seasons. And this was massive. It would be very close between the three of them, and you couldn't actually pick at the time who you wanted in that factory seat. Enea showed great and help towards Ducati, but Marc Marquez and his rise from the Ducati this year would look to be extremely massive, and his continuous growth, while Jorge Martin showed to be the best pace-wise on a Ducati. But despite, in the end, we all know that Marc Marquez would get that signed deal with factory Ducati, which prompted Jorge Martin to leave Ducati. As he said, if he wouldn't be picked by the factory Ducati, he would leave Ducati entirely, which then prompted Aprilia to take the shot and sign Jorge Martin for the 2025 season, which was massive at the time because no one knew who was going to win the championship. No one knew who the right call. A lot said Martin, a lot said Marquez, some said Enea, but evidently Ducati chose their choice. And also going along with Martin to Aprilia was Marco Bezzecchi, was now his teammate to make a really competitive lineup at the time. Coming down to the last 6 races, it was clear that Pecco Bagnaia had the hungry Jorge Martin fighting against him. As a costly race in Misano, with a panicking decision of wanting to change bikes when the Rangers started to hit the track, that cost him with only 1 point receiving that weekend, so that was very costly for him. In the last 6 races, he stepped up the game once again, a P2 in India, a race win in Indonesia, as Japan, Australia and Thailand will be very, very close between Pecco and Jorge, as he picked up 4 podiums including a sprint in Thailand. That would leave Martin as the World Championship leader into Malaysia, and this was vital going into the final round of Valencia. And it was extremely close in qualifying because Pecco just beat him in qualifying, so that means Pecco will be on pole with Martin in second. Had to get a great start for the sprint, and he did, and he was ahead, and Pecco was trying to chase, and then until he crashed. For Jorge, this was massive, as it would leave a massive gap in the championship. They come Sunday, Martin will pick up P2, and it was going to go to the final round, Pecco and Jorge Martin. But then, disaster struck. In Spain, Valencia, there was a massive, terrible flood, resulted as the final round being cancelled. And this is a way where no one wanted to end the season on, especially a horrific event like this. And that means that the final round will be going to Barcelona instead. And ultimately, that was Jorge Martin's home round as well. So if he wanted this at home, he wanted it more than ever. And then at that weekend, Jorge Martin achieved his dream. He achieved a dream of becoming a MotoGP world champion. It was such a difficult season between him and Pecco, trading positions, trading points, losing places, crashing. The mental and physical was so hard on both of them, but it came victorious that Jorge Martin finally achieved his dream once as a kid is now reality. Now comes 2025. After finally achieving his dream, he would move to Aprilia for testing. While getting to know the bike at Barcelona and Sepang, Jorge Martin would have another horrific 2 crashes on the bike, trying to learn and get the best out of the bike he could. A massive crash resulting in another almost career-ending injury, which put him out for so long, and this was massive. The defending world champion would not race at the start of the MotoGP Grand Prix. With a crash like that and what he's been through, and to finally achieve his dream, to now have this was massive. And the fact he would not take part in the first few races in MotoGP. And for Aprilia, this was massive because not having your #1 rider who you signed for to not be racing, one for development and the second for performances, and as Martin would sit, recover and take time off from MotoGP from that horrific injury, he was replaced by test rider Lorenzo Savadori, try and get some sort of most out of the bike that we could at the time. But there was some light. Qatar, he would make his return for finally his first Grand Prix back, and first with Aprilia. This was big for everyone in the community and MotoGP. As obviously, coming back from a crash and injury like that, it would not be easy at all, as he would struggle, obviously one with injury and the pain, as he would finish 16th in combined practices, 8 places behind his teammate. But then came qualifying on Saturday, and he showed a little bit more pace, as he would have to go through Q1 for the first time in a long time. But despite, again, his injury and his pain, he would start P14 for the sprint and the race. And as the sprint came, again, he would struggle again, as he finished at the points in a P16 behind 15.7 seconds to the winner, Marc Marquez, again. And this wasn't the Jorge Martin that we knew. We knew he was still recovering, and we knew we had to give him time. However, come Sunday in MotoGP warm-up, Martin seemed to have a new fresh in his step. Is that a word? Is that a sentence? Jorge Martin would put in a great lap of a 153.253, would put in P3 in the MotoGP warm-up, just behind Marc Marquez and Maverick Vinales. It would show that this would be a great day for him. However, come the race, put him some great moves, fine, but then as midway through the race, he would again start to struggle more and more, as his injury would show to wear and bring more pain to him. But then, coming through into the third sector, he would lose the front ahead of Fabio Di Gianantonio, and then would be struck by Ducati. And this was a horrible sight to see. The world champion again on the floor, even more injured now than ever. To be collected by a bike at that speed as well would be even more painful, resulting in that he had to miss the next race at Spain and France because of his injury, and had to recover once again back on the sidelines. But then, after that amazing French Grand Prix, rumours start to spread that Jorge Martin wanted out of Aprilia, out of his contract. He wanted out as early as the end of 2025 from his 2-year deal. And everyone, this was a shock because he hadn't been on the bike very long, but despite having 2 massive injuries and only being at 1 race weekend, this was quite the jump and massive rumour at the time, as it left everyone questioning, was it true or not? But then came the British Grand Prix, as Marco Bezzecchi would qualify P11 and finish P6 in the sprint, and then the chaotic Sunday race, he would win the British Grand Prix, because it would have been over a year since Aprilia's last MotoGP race since Maverick Vinales at America in 2024. But then, something weird happened. After the Grand Prix, minutes after the Grand Prix, Massimo Riviola, this is a message to Jorge, our bike can win. And to everyone, it wasn't just a rumour, it was the truth. That something behind the scenes, Aprilia and Martin, something bad was going on. Soured their relationship almost instantly. As a statement like this coming from the boss at Aprilia, it didn't seem very bright that Jorge Martin genuinely wanted out of his contract early. Which again, was a bit of a surprise to everyone because he had not been on the bike very much, but coming down from a competitive Ducati package from the year before to Aprilia, which was the 3rd best bike on the grid, would obviously take time. And the latest rumour has been that he's been linked for going to factory Honda or potentially back to Ducati. Not sure of who yet or what's the truth, but that's all we know with rumours and behind the scenes with Aprilia. But why did it get this bad? Was it the constant injuries? Was it the constant pain that he was maybe suffering? Was it something even more than that? Because it seemed like he could not gel with the bike early on, but with a new bike and team like this, you would have to give it time. But this is leaving a very sour and possibly unrepairable relationship on Jorge Martin and Aprilia's relationship, which could effectively never work now. And Martin received a massive backlash because of this, leaving early despite only a few test days and 1 race weekend. He wants out. Now, what does this leave for the future? At the moment, we can't really say, but I think what we can say is if Martin does get out of that contract, which by saying at Aprilia that he will be staying for the next 2 years, where would he go? My prediction would be probably factory Honda, because they've been on an upscale recently with obviously somehow getting a race win, but also being a lot more competitive this year, fighting at the front, and I think he could bring the best out of a Honda, possibly more than Aprilia, and that could be a good match. But with him possibly staying in 2026 due to legal reasons and politics, it could be a very awkward next year and a half between the two. And if he does leave at the end of 2026, which I don't think he would want to renew after this truth, and despite how big the gravity of this truth is, maybe the reasons why he wants out, this could have a massive implications, even on the likes of his future of his MotoGP career, because what are the chances possibly that the trust, not within Aprilia, but within the other MotoGP teams, that is he actually going to stay for the right reasons? Are they going to sign him because he wants to ride the bike? This could leave a massive damp patch on his career and his future because of this truth. And where will it lead him? Honestly, I think he'll stay in MotoGP, but it could leave him with huge consequences because of this. This has been the story of Jorge Martin and Aprilia, their relationship possibly at an end. But we can only pray for the best that if it does get repaired and they work together and work past this through this, get podiums like Marco Bezzecchi did in his first half a year with Aprilia, then maybe it is savable. Maybe they can salvage something from this. Despite Martin wanting early, hopefully they can push between both camps together and make them work better together. Or am I just delusional? We'll have to wait and see what time tells, but honestly, my prediction, they're never going to work. Okay, I'm going to jump in here. This is edited to me, literally almost about to finish this. And literally news just came out that Jorge Martin has confirmed that he wants to leave Aprilia, exercising a clause in his contract to break so he can leave early. So everything I just said in the last minute, don't listen. So that means the truth has now been revealed about both sides. He's released a very, very long statement on his story today, literally hours. Literally as I'm editing this, Jorge wants to leave Aprilia early in a clause, but it's not official that he'll leave just yet, but we really don't know. It's all within the contract and what he's able to do. So he has been linked even now, even stronger, going to factory Honda. Because as Alberto Puig says, but if you ask me if you have interest in Jorge Martin as a rider, of course. Which sounds like a massive sign that potentially something's going on there and that Jorge could be going to Honda come 2026. But again, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the contract and all that politics stuff, which don't even involve me in that. But that's a crazy update. Literally as I'm editing, that's a crazy update. It's been a roller coaster.